Hi everyone, Bandana here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this week's WARNO devlog with some additional bits since they released something on Monday which we'll talk about as well. So this week's main devlog is about the next division for Southag, which is Division du Rhin, which is no relation to the dwarf from the Lord of the Rings series. But let's start with the Reservist and Militia traits with the changes coming up. So they want to rework Reservist trait because it's very punishing right now and add in an additional trait which is called Militia. So let's talk about that in a bit more detail. So why this change? This question has come up frequently. Aren't Reservist units too heavily penalised? Currently the Reservist trait comes with the most severe set of penalties in the game, plus 50% received suppression, minus 5% accuracy, plus 20% aim time, and plus 15% reload time. These cumulative drawbacks significantly reduce the effectiveness of reservist units on the battlefield, and that applies to infantry and tanks obviously. As a result, decks that rely on large numbers of reservists often struggle to maintain attractive or competitive status compared to those who build around regular or elite troops. So what is the rework? Well, the goal is to make reservists more effective and at the same time create a real distinction between certain units that have fundamentally different and shouldn't have the same penalties. So some units are reservists who receive regular military training, while others are simply fresh enlisted troops with no training who have never handled a weapon. That's why we want to create a militia trait for the latter. It makes sense, yeah? Here is how we will assign the traits. Reservists, former servicemen recalled into service after they have returned to civilian life for a prolonged time, or National Guardsmen. They know how to use military equipment, but military discipline isn't their way of life anymore, i.e. the American National Guard. I can't say that's how the American National Guard are, but we'll go with what Eugene is saying here. Militia. Organized and disciplined units on active duty in peacetime, but not used to handle military-grade weapons or act as infantry. Most often they are law enforcement units, i.e. the BGS. And then there are reservist and militia units, who are draftees just called into war or militias, so just random folks off the street. The change. So what is actually going to happen? Well, units of reservists will have their trait updated to be plus 50% received suppression, minus 5% accuracy. And the new militia trait will penalise them with the plus 20% aim time and plus 20% reload time. There will be exceptions that could receive both traits, for example, the KDA Schützen. Now, the effects of the military police trait will remain unchanged. The military police trait cancels penalties of nearby reservist units. However, nothing will be able to cancel the penalties imposed by the militia trait because, well, someone pointing a gun at your head telling you off isn't really going to help if you don't know how to use the weapon that you're holding anyway. So here's a list of divisions that will be affected by these changes. For NATO, the 4E, the 152nd E, the 16DE, the 6th, 9th and 24th and the 35th, the 11th ACR, the 2nd Panzer Grenadiers, the 5th Panzers, TKS, 2nd Infantry Division and Berlin Command. And then on the packed side it's the KDA, Berliner Gruppierung, 6th YA and the 157th YA MSD. That's all those ones there. So just to clarify a few things that have come up in questions. So vehicles will only ever have reservist. They cannot have militia because they're working on the basis that tanks, for example, whoever is driving that tank has to have had some training to drive that tank. It's not like picking up an assault rifle, pointing it in a direction and pulling the trigger. You have to know how to drive and work that vehicle. So vehicles will only have reservist. Militia is purely going to be for infantry at the moment. And then obviously only infantry can have reservist and militia. That's the plan at the current time anyway. Who's to say it won't change in the future, but that's right now. And it kind of makes sense. And it will make those reservist divisions a little bit more palatable, I think, in general. But let's move on to this week's actual dev blog. So, Southag Division number 7, Division du Rhin, again, nothing to do with the dwarf. So, this is NATO's French division. The French Division du Rhin is the shortest-lived French division in our WARNO timeline, having been created in 1984. After its brief Cold War career, the formation was downsized to a Brigade de Alasse? It's French, and I'm unsure how to put their letters together. Anyhow, in 1993, before officially being disbanded in 1999. So, when raised in the 1980s, the Division du Rhin was consolidated with a bunch of existing units and equipment under a unified command. So, as such, it amalgamated the Zone de Franchissement du Rhin, the Rhine crossing area, with the command and control elements from the 62nd E Division Militia and the recently disbanded 6E Division Blindy. The division wasn't assigned to any corps or NATO command, instead it was directly subordinated to the French First Army. The Division du Rhin was task-oriented division with one mission: to allow and protect the swift transfer of 12 divisions from France to West Germany in case of conflict. These amounted to 2 army corps and all their organic units, 2 logistic brigades, and in the second phase, keep the supply lines open to the front. To accompany this, the formation was to organize traffic through existing bridges over the Rhine, ferry boat services, as well as create new military ones, deploying good old World War II Bailey bridges, which the French used well into the 2000s, including the original instruction manuals. Having set up means, the Division du Rhin would then defend these river crossings against potential air attacks, raids, enemy commandos, and the like. So, close cooperation. The French Division du Rhin was also to coordinate with the West German territorial units on the other bank of the Rhine, to the point that by 1989 there were talks on high political levels to merge the formations into a combined French-German division. However, both parties couldn't see eye to eye on the binational division's mission. One wanted it to be static, protecting the Rhine crossings, and the other saw it as a mobile engineering division able to follow NATO's field armies deeper into combat. These disagreements, combined with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, put a premature end to this particular cooperation. However, the French and Germans didn't completely abandon the idea, which paved the way for the creation of the smaller Brigade Franco-Allemande, the French-German Brigade, which I guess is this one here in the picture. Anyhow, the NATO's French Division du Rhin's history. So, the Division du Rhin had specialised organisation built around 3 engineer regiments, 2 of them being reservists. The formation could also call on an independent engineer battalion, 1 infantry regiment, and 3 further infantry battalions, all reservists. On top of this, the French had access to an entire anti-air regiment to fend off inevitable enemy air attacks on the bridges and ferries. Makes sense? The Division du Rhin hardly had any armour or artillery, but in case of potential enemy ground attacks, nearby units would have been folded into the battle group's command. Not too far away, the French 7E Division Blindy would provide some additional armoured reinforcements. A mobilisation division, this particular formation was lesser equipped, or a lesser equipped French armoured division, still operating the older AMX-30, as well as being famously the last operator of the AMX-13 in active service in 1989. Those in West Berlin were supposedly kept in storage. The divisional infantry was equipped with AMX-10Ps and AMX-13 VCIs, and a small number of VABs. The Division du Rhin, being located in the French First Corps area of operations, could count on its medium to long-range artillery cover. The West German Heimatschützen Brigade 55 was located on the other side of the Rhine. After 1989, elements of this unit weren't disbanded. They became the German part of the French-German Brigade. There they are being deployed. So, The Division du Rhin was France's rear reserve division, much akin to WARNO's West German Terror Commando Sud, featuring both French and West German units. So what will it look like in the game? Well, in logistics, it's a good category, much like any other WARNO reserve division, playing the home advantage. Supply units include the FOB, the TRM 2000 logistics, and the TRM 10,000 logistics supply trucks. Command units with the M201 PC, the new AMX 13 Mod 56 PC, as well as the Alouette 2 PC and the West German Fuchs. So, infantry is very good, with lots of options and plenty of variety in that infantry tab. The Division du Rhin relies heavily on sapeurs, aka combat engineers, and reservists for boots on the ground. The command reservists, reservistes, and reservistes LRAC, both featured previously in the Nemesis 2 Plateau d'Albion's 152E Division d'Infanterie, and the reservists FR1 with the MAS 49/56 rifles, AA 52 LMG, and one FRF1 DMR, and one LRAC 73. All squads are deployable in trucks or AMX 13 VCI 12.7mm APCs. There will also be the command sapeurs, the sapeurs, and the sapeurs flam, as well as reserve sapeurs with MAT 49 SMGs, the MAS 49/56 rifles, and the AA 52 LMG and explosives, plus the reservist trait. They come in trucks and the AMX 13 VCG F1 dedicated combat engineer APC. Anti-tank weapons include the M40A1 recoilless rifle. Securing the rear area against enemy saboteurs, maintaining security and improving the flow of traffic, they have regular prévôtés riding in the P4 Grenadier Gendarmerie. I struggle with pronouncing that one. Anyhow, both coming with the military police trait. The new Command Gendarmes Mobiles, which are 4-man command squads armed with the MAT 49, the military police trait, also deploying in the P4 Gendarmerie? The Gendarmes Mobiles are 8-man squads armed with the 2x MAT 49, 5 FAMAS, and 1 AA 52 LMG plus a military police trait. They come in the Traffic Gendarmerie, which is a utility truck, or the VRBG. A dedicated VAB armed only with an AANF1 7.62, but coming with the security trait. Interesting mix. With the 7E Division Blindy, heavy reinforcements arrive in the form of one card each of the command chasseurs in a truck AMX 13 VCI 12.7mm or the AMX 13 VCI 20mm, autocannon, and the chasseurs in a truck or AMX 13 VCI 20mm, so again autocannon. Coming from the Heimatschutzen Brigade 55, the West German provides all the following squads vet-locked at experience level 1 max. Jägerführer, Jaeger PZF squads, plus the PALR Milan 1, all deployable in Softskin Fuchs or Fuchs Milans. Artillery. Balanced with some choices and several slots, but quickly rising in cost. Only a handful of artillery pieces were historically available to the Division du Rhin. The only organic piece is the ubiquitous MO-120 RT-61 mortar. The division was not foreseen to really need its own artillery arm, supposedly being a static formation within the 1st Corps sector. As such, this neighbouring formation provided the M50-63 155mm howitzers and the LRM, the French designation for the M270 MLRS. This is a slight march to war unit, as the 12E Regiment d'Artillerie, the one earmarked to first receive, or to first convert to the M270, only started receiving the MLRS in the early part of the 1990s. Okay, so they're being a bit cheeky there. The West German HBS 55 brings its own light artillery in the form of the FH-M1A2, 105mm. Lastly, local artillery skills would have drawn from storage some older Automature AU-50 105mm and F3 Automature 155mm SPGs, to be crewed by reservists and hence gaining the Reservist Trait. The latter F3 pieces are the ones just given up by the 12E Regiment Artillery mentioned above. Okay, Tank tab. Balanced category with a good number of slots including their price. Choices mostly limited to older tanks. The very few tanks available to the Division du Rhin would have been the Combat Engineers M47 Dozer equipped with dozer blades and a 90mm gun. The division also had a number of M201 Milan Jeep-based missile tank destroyers. The West Germans bring a sprinkling of the PZ-BEF M48A2 GA2 and the Heimat M48A4 GA2. The latter armour is the current M48A2 GA2, which we will rename for reasons to be explained in a future dev blog. Okay. Anyhow, finally, the 7E Division Blindy features the AMX 13 T75 PC command variant with a 75mm gun, the AMX 13 T75 TCM, and the AMX 13 T75 TCA. The latter two vehicles are armed with SS11 rails over the main gun, with a TCA designation indicating more accurate targeting systems. I guess that's this? That does look very hodgepodge, doesn't it? Just strap a couple of missiles to the front. Anyhow, Recon, one of the more pretty balanced, including everything in this deck has said balanced pretty much so far. How is this one of the more pretty balanced ones? Anyhow, including an almost mandatory AML 60 and AML 90 backed by the M201 M40A1 Recon Jeep and the M201 Razura battlefield radar. Recon infantry can deploy in a variety of disguises. The French Reserve Éclairs with 3 times MAT 49, 1 AA52 plus an LRAC 73, and the Reservist Trait obviously. They come in either the M201, the M201 AA52, or the Alouette 2. The West Germans bring the BGS Streify in an Iltis or UHD-1, and the Bundeswehr Jägeraufklärer in a truck, Fuchs, or It's Aufklärer PZ Fuchs. I'm not entirely sure what that one is. The division also receives the Alouette 2 Air Recon helicopter. AA. The divisional anti-air defences are pretty good, with an entire anti-air regiment just for itself, further backed by independent SAM-equipped units. The division's anti-air regiment was entirely equipped with older AA guns to fend off low-flying attacks. The main weapon system is the M55 Maxen Quad, in either the Toad or M16 MGMC half-track variant, and the M38/55 40mm, meaning the Beaufort's piece also available, all in mint World War II condition. On top of this, the SAM regiments provide the Eyehawk and the HS-831 Trin 30mm guns, plus some Fliegerforce manpads courtesy of the HSB-55. Helicopter tab is rather underwhelming. The Division du Rhin had no rotorcraft available, with only a few that could be spared from neighbouring formations. You will get 2 expensive slots, and choice between one card each of the Alouette 3 AS-11, the Gazelle Cannon, or the BO-105 PAH-1. Air tab is pretty good, as the division gets the French Alpha Jet in Napalm Cluster variants. Nearby Fighter Squadron Navarre, flying the Mirage 3, will be performing both air superiority and strike missions. The particular aircraft will duly come in AA, SEED, and AT loadouts. Local Fighter Squadron Alice brings the Mirage 2000 RDM, being the predecessor to the Mirage 2000 RDI. This plane comes in 2 variants, with the AA-1 representing the Mirage 2000 Series 1 and 2 with its 4 R550 Magic 2 missiles, and the AA-2 Mirage 2000 Series 3 featuring 2 R550 Magic 2 and 2 Super 530F missiles. The Mirage 2000 RDI currently in game is actually a Series 4. Only one is available. Oh, that's the only one able to fire the Super 530D. I don't know what the difference is between those missiles. Someone can tell me in the comments. The air cover is completed by the Mirage 5 FHE and the German F4F AT. There's quite a lot of planes. The Division 2 Rhin, much like the other reserve divisions, is most powerful in its infantry and anti-air departments, further backed by potent artillery and air cover. You've just said the artillery's not very good, and now you're saying it's potent. Tanks and anti-tank units are available in an acceptable number, but of older make and model, while helicopters are rare. Like other reservist battle groups, the Division 2 Rhin benefits from the recent Reservist/Militia rework. There you go. And that's everything for this week. We've got a bit of a loading screen in the background there. Thank you very much for joining me, everyone. I hope you all have a nice weekend. A little bit of a longer video this week since we were covering 2 blogs effectively. But I will see you all next week. Just to let everyone know, Eugen is still working hard on the driver crashing issues for NVIDIA. We're all getting it on NVIDIA cards, or at least the RTX cards. So don't worry, they are well aware and they are working on finding a fix, and they're trying several things as the weeks go on. So bear with them. The fix is coming.